Winston here just told me that Congress just passed the single largest defense bill in the history of the United States, and he had to lie down on that news. And a few days before that, for the first time ever, the US military sent a swarm of robot boats, no humans on board, to attack an enemy naval base. They were suicide boats. And think about what that means. A drone that costs a few $1,000s can now take out a warship, a radar station, a command center that costs hundreds of millions. So that is not a headline. It's literally the biggest shift in how wars are fought and funded in 50 years. And it is about to move a lot of money. Now, I called this about a year ago. I named the exact companies, and if you'd put $10,000 into the top name that I'd said, it would have turned into $47,000 at the top. So here's the strange part. A lot of people who were right about all of this lost money. Let me show you why and how to be on the right side of it this time around, because this second opportunity, I believe, is going to be way bigger than the first one. And if this is your first time here, my name is Felix. This is Winston. Winston, sit up. Up, 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 up. There he is. Say hello. And I used to be an investment banker. He's just really, really good, and he's got a very large nose. He sniffs, swims around. And today we run the GOAT Academy, where my retired Wall Street mentors teach regular people the exact strategies the big institutions use. We've taught over 26,000 people in the last 6 years. We take no sponsors. I'm not here to sell you some fund. I'm here to give you the financial education you actually deserve, so you can spend more time with your hound if you've got one, or, any kind of family will do. But, hounds are pretty good, aren't they? Now, I'm going to cover a ton of stuff. I've read all the institutional research reports here, and I'm going to put all of that information into a free research report for you, which you can download at felixfriends.org/UAV. Links down below in the description. So you can download it and you can follow along, or you can read it later. So let's start with why this is happening. Because for 70 years, the way you won a war was a simple: spend more money, build bigger, more expensive machines, fighter jets, aircraft carriers, a missile that costs $1 million a shot. And then something broke the whole idea: cheap drones. And the math that has every general and every defense investor rattled is the following: an enemy can send a drone that costs maybe $1,000 to shoot down. An enemy can send a drone that costs maybe $1,000, and to shoot it down, you fire an interceptor missile that costs over $1 million. So, yeah, you sort of win the battle, but you definitely lose in the bank. Because if you do that a few hundred times, you spend more shooting down toys than they spend building them. And this is what it's called asymmetric warfare. It is the single most important idea we've seen. Maybe you don't want to invest in defense stocks. I also respect that. There are civilian applications too, of course, for this, but a lot of this is going to be defense. Cheap now beats expensive. The little guy can now punch a hole in the biggest military on earth, and we're seeing that. It's not a theory anymore. US Special Forces learned it the hard way in the Middle East. Cheap Iranian drones knocked out multi-million-dollar radar systems that the US had literally spent decades building, and it exposed a gap, a hole in the defenses. And when the most powerful military in the world discovers a hole, they do away cheap attack drones, interceptors, and the systems that shoot drones out of the sky before the next conflict, no matter. So now the United States is racing to buy cheap attack drones, interceptors, and the systems that shoot drones out of the sky. And you might have noticed the US is in the middle of a conflict, so it's rather urgent. And that's why Congress just passed the biggest defense bill the US has in its history, with a whole section dedicated to drones, counter-drones, and AI on the battlefield. To really understand what the opportunities are here, so I want to give you those actual opportunities, and then you have to come to your own conclusion, because I'm not a financial advisor. But global military spend about $3 trillion a year. The top 10 countries are most of that. The US is the largest slice. And think about $3 trillion, and you just put like 10%, 20%, 30% of that towards drones and just autonomous. So let me hand you the map of where this money is flowing and show you how to avoid the trap that caught almost everybody last time I showed you this. Because what you need to understand before we go one step further, being right about the story is not $23,000. But if you held it because you just believed the story so much, you would have actually lost money. You'd be down to about $8,000. Ondas, whereas even, that's a difficult sentence, isn't it? On Wall Street, or AeroVironment, it went up to $16,000 and then it went down to $5,000. So you gave about $16,000 and then it went down to $5,000. So you gave about half your money. And that happened to all of these stocks, if you can see it here on this screen. So how does that happen? How are you right about the biggest defense shift in 50 years and you're still down on money? Here's how. Because you followed the headlines for your time. And the headlines are always late. By the time a story is exciting enough to be on the news, the big money is already looking for the exit. So you bought the excitement. They sold the excitement to you so they could realize the same as making money. Let me prove it to you with literally my own calls a year ago. I named these drone companies. You can see them on the screen here. Literally about a year ago. There are 3 videos I made on these. And it played out exactly as I said, right? The bill passed, the drone boats launched, the money started moving. And if you'd followed along, you don't follow the bloody headlines for timing. That's exactly how you get burned. You need to follow the money, the way Wall Street does it. They don't ask, is this a good story? They ask, where is the money flowing today? And where is the door when it stops? And it's a skill, it's a system, it's learnable. You don't need a finance degree, you just need the rules. So here's what I want you to do. I'm going to run a free, live, 2-hour training on Saturday, I think it's 9 a.m. New York time, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm going to walk you through exactly that. Wall Street's own trading system that makes the news irrelevant. I have not owned a television in 20 years. I get weirder and weirder by the minute, don't I? So this isn't a buy the stock thing. I will share with you what I own and everything else, but I'm going to show you a repeatable way to know when to get in and just as important when to get out. And by the way, we don't try to time the market perfectly, which is nonsense. But we look for where the money is flowing and we go with the wave rather than against it because it's just a lot easier. So if you want to learn that, go to bulletproofportfolio.org. It's the first and the final time I will teach it to you in this form, live and unadulterated. Grab your free ticket, show up live, bring your questions, share the link with other people who might benefit from this too. It is free. There will be no replay. Don't bother asking for one because this only sinks in if you're actually there, not on the replay. I've tried, it doesn't work. So let me give you the 3 waves of the drone here. You can call them UAVs as well, unmanned aerial vehicle. Although some of them are not in the air, they're now on the ground or in the sea, which is spooky. And by the way, this terrifies me. If it terrifies you, let me know in the comments. But I don't see one big blob of drone stocks. I see 3 separate waves of money, different times. You get the wave right and everything gets easier, wave 1. I call those the builders. These are the companies that physically make the cheap drones and get them out the door fast. The very first thing a military does in a panic is just buy hardware, lots of it, right? So the builders get the first flood of money. So these are the guys actually manufacturing the small attack drones, the parts that go in them. Some of them are public and you can buy them. Some of the most important ones are actually still private. That's going to go public later. That could be interesting. But on the public side, you've got stocks like AVAV, Ondas, and Redcat. And these are the first wave. And by the way, a lot of these stocks are beaten up pretty harshly, which is actually why I think this is the perfect moment to understand this, because you have a little bit of time for the money to really bounce back in. This is down 60% on the Redcat here, for example, which is a good thing. It's the guys who made the software. Because 100 drones have to think and act as one in this new world, autonomy, swarming, and so on. And that's where the giant tech and software companies come in. The ones building the battlefield AI that everything else plugs into. And wave 2 shows up a little bit later than wave 1, but it tends to last longer because software doesn't get blown up, and therefore you just don't really change it, right? Palantir will be an obvious name in wave 2. Now wave 3, I call it the shield. And this is what everybody forgets. If cheap drones are the new threat, and the biggest new master drones, counter drone systems, the devices and radars that detect a swarm from far away and knock it down cheaply. Because remember, the whole problem is that shooting a $2,000 drone with a multi-million-dollar missile is a bad deal, right? So whoever solves that, whoever can kill a cheap drone cheaply, is sitting on an enormous market. And that's wave 3, the shield. I just put a screenshot in here of the Goldman Sachs report. They recently interviewed and met with every single one of these companies and gave us some really cool insight, which I will share some of that with you. So write down the builders, the brains, the shield, right? Every single company in this space fits into one of these 3 buckets, and knowing which bucket tells you when the money is likely to show up and when it's likely to leave. Most people will buy it in the wrong order, which is the trap here. So the story will stay true, but the money will move on from part to part. And I just want to hammer this home again, because what happened to $10,000 in each of these names from the day I first talked about them to their peak, you can see it on the screen here, right? In AVAV, it turned into 16,000, and Kratos into 22,000, 370% gain. So this could have been life-changing, right? But now look at the second half of the story. What happened if you did what most people did? You got excited, you bought, and you held because somebody told you this, oh, just buy good companies and hold them forever. Yeah, this is not Coca-Cola, and this is also not 1968. No. The $47,000 in Ondas is now only 24K. Not terrible, but not wonderful. Now your 16K in AeroVironment is now only 5K. So you've turned 10 into 5K. Congratulations. So the lesson here, and really think about this. You could pick the right sector, the right company, been completely right about the news, and still ended up poorer because you had no exit. It's the single most expensive lesson in investing and in trading, and nobody really teaches it. Getting in is easy. The hard half is whether you make money and whether you sell. Wall Street, they're not smarter. Honestly, they're not. If you met them, you're cold-hearted, but that's the whole point, right? So let me leave you with the framework I use for themes like this, and then we're going to go much deeper into this. You join me on earlier. Step 1, you pick the wave, not the stocks. Before you buy anything, you ask yourself, is this a builder, a brain, or a shield stock in this UAV world? Because that tells you what kind of money is actually flowing, not where the headline is loudest, right? I literally don't watch the news. Now, Winston, I just put these 5 companies that I'm talking about here, literally just in here as my tickers. I hit save changes, and then it gives me literally every single day, I think every single time I log into it, an updated view of exactly what's going on with those stocks. So I'm not saying be oblivious to what you own. I'm saying don't watch mainstream news, because to there, it's probably someone trying to sell you something, right? But by the time the news is screaming about the stock, the easy money is usually gone. The pros are already positioned before the headline, and they're probably trimming into it. They probably pushed the headline to be out there. So if you want to see money actually moving before the whole world is talking about it, that's what follow the money means in practice. It's not a vibe, it's a signal you can actually learn to read, and I'll teach you the full thing on Saturday. And then step 3, we decide you exit before you ever buy. And this would have saved where do I get out if I'm wrong? And where do I take profits if I'm right? And then you follow those rules. You can automate them too. It is no feelings in this. Just one rule, which is the difference between turning 10,000 into 47,000 and turning 10,000 into 5,000, right? That's literally the whole thing. So you pick the wave, you follow the money in, you know you exit. Everything else is basically said in 3 sentences. Actually doing it, having the exact rules and the confidence to pull the trigger, is what people struggle with, right? And that's the part that I teach. So here's what I'll leave you with. The drone boom is real. The money is good. This thing ran up beautifully from last summer, and then it came crashing back down because it's being traded by people who want to make money out of this, enormous amounts of money. And I believe we're early. Congress just told you that with the biggest defense bill in history is going to fund the heck out of this. I believe we're going to see more Ondas stories, where literally like life-changing money can potentially be made. Worth is if the headlines control your timing. That's literally how good investors lose money. So learn to follow the money the way the pros do. So the headlines can no longer burn you. I'm going to teach you that system live for free. Go to bulletproofportfolio.org. Grab your free ticket, actually show up. If you want to dig deeper into the names, download that thing as well. It's linked down below. But it isn't about stock picks. It isn't about me giving you a ticker. It is about, because I've done that, right? And it went up like 500% or something, and then people still lose money. Why? Because they buy up here somewhere, and now they're down, 40%. Okay, runs up a lot, and then you lose money again. And it's only avoidable if people actually learn the rules. But I'm seeing some real institutional money pouring into this, and I'm going, this looks very exciting. It's still early. I haven't clicked buy on these yet. It's on my list. I'm watching it, and I'm watching for very, very, very specific things that'll tell me that it's trade, but actually properly flowing in there. So it could be the most important 2 hours that you'll spend on your money this year, this life. Saturday, 9 a.m. Watching YouTube video number 500. These tips, people are sometimes right, people are sometimes wrong. And that's just the reality of the world. So if you're following people and just blindly buying what they're buying, you will sometimes be lucky. Sometimes I share with you what I'm buying, but I might not share with you when I'm selling it. Not out of spite, it's just I don't make a video every single day and, it'd be tedious. So I want to teach you to fish, not sell you fish. And it'll mean you'll be independent. You don't need me. You can teach this to your children. It is just the much, much better thing to do. The alternative is like, think about one of the favorite sports you play. You play, I don't know, tennis or hockey or whatever it might be. And every single time you were going to hit the ball, you'd have to ask someone, should I hit it this way or that way? Stock picks. For yourself on Saturday, bulletproofyourportfolio.org. Share that link on your social media if you think other people might get some value out of it. And we're going to run it live for free. About 2 hours. You can ask me anything you ever wanted to ask me. And I wish you great success. 1.2 million households just woke up to the same text message from their broker. It didn't say you're down. It said your account has been liquidated, sold automatically.